My name is Marcy, and this is my husband Roger, and this is Fred. Fred is totally an obnoxious dachshund, and always has been. We rescued him, and he's always been very lively. And one day he just was, every time he moved, he cried, and we just thought maybe he'd just tweaked his back a little bit, but after several days he was getting pretty bad, so we took him to the vet, and they put him on some steroids and gave him some pain pills, and he seemed a little bit better, and then the next day he was really not walking quite right, and so we took him to back to the vet, and they put him on some more steroids, and told us to keep him in the kennel, keep him kennel bound for 6 weeks. Well, keeping a dachshund quiet is a whole different story, but he just kept getting worse. He just got where he couldn't hardly walk in his back end, and just the constant crying and pain all the time was just, it was breaking our hearts, because he's Fred. And so we took him back to the vet because he was just getting so bad. He just wouldn't stop crying, and he just couldn't walk, and every time he moved it was just whining and crying. And our vet in Bloomfield, Dr. Paul, was just very sad because everybody loves Fred. And he said, you know, as Marcy and Roger, it's just not looking good for our little Fred. He goes, I think you're going to have to put him down. And we just couldn't make that decision. We just, we stood there and stood there and stood there and just cried, and he was crying, and so he said, well, maybe you should get a second opinion. So he sent us to a vet in Norfolk, and he put him on more steroids and gave him shots and told us to keep him in his kennel, in his little crate. And we took the top off of his crate. I slept on the floor with my hand over the edge because that was the only way he would stop crying. I had to carry him outside to go to the bathroom, then I had to hold up his back end because he just had no control. And we took him back to the vet, and the vet was just like, I don't think there's any hope. And I said, well, I can't make the decision to put him down, you know. And he says, well, why don't you leave him here overnight, and then you and your husband come back in tomorrow, and we'll make a decision. And I kind of have a bad back, so carrying around a dachshund for 2 weeks, my back was really hurting, so I went to see Dr. Timmerman in Norfolk, my chiropractor, and I told him, I said, I wish I could bring Fred to you because you always help my back. And he says, well, I don't work on pets, he says, but there's a chiropractor in Columbus that does. It's Dr. Crabtree. So I called down here, and that was on a Wednesday or Thursday. He said, bring him down. So I come down, and the whole ride to Columbus, Fred is laying in the seat in the bottom half of his crate, and he's just crying and crying all the way down here. And I thought, you know, are we making the right decision, even trying to help him? And so I got down here, I brought him in, he couldn't walk, I carried him in, and Dr. Crabtree came in and started petting him, and just petting him, he would cry. And so he started working on him, and the first pass down his back, Fred was just crying out in pain. And in my head I'm thinking, what are we doing to this poor dog? You know, I'm putting him through even more pain. And Dr. Crabtree just said, just let's do it again. So the second pass down his back, Fred kind of just whined a little bit. The third time down his back, adjusting it, he relaxed. He quit crying, and then they did the cold laser treatment on him. And he said, well, bring him back on Monday for another treatment. And so I took him out and I put him in the car, put him in half of the crate that was sitting in the seat. And Fred stretched out and he slept all the way home, an hour and a half back to Wausau. He was just relaxed and not crying, which was wonderful. My husband got home that night and I was so excited because Fred had actually, when I took him outside, he walked and went to the bathroom without my help, and I was so excited. And then Sunday night, he did pretty good until Sunday night, and then he started where he was crying and stuff. We come back Monday, and Fred got another treatment again. The first time down his back, he kind of cried. The second time, you could really see him relax. The third time, when we put him down on the floor, he just walked across the floor and started jumping around. So we brought him back down several times. But this is Fred. I mean, he's gained back the weight. At the worst part, when he couldn't walk, his little hips were just about this wide. And he couldn't do anything, he just drug his legs. And so to see him running around now and jumping like he's not supposed to do, and being obnoxious like he normally is, it's just kind of a miracle. I mean, we just, people just cannot believe that saw him at his worst, that he is like he is now. He is obnoxious, and he goes everywhere with us, and yeah, and he always has to be the center of attention. And he made our grandson laugh out loud, belly laugh, the very first time he laughed. So he's got a special part in all of our lives. But yeah, to see him like this, we brought him back for kind of a tune-up a little bit, but most generally he does pretty good. We try to be careful with him jumping off of the couch, but trying to get him to understand that he can't jump is something you just have a hard time to do with a dachshund. But he's definitely the star of the show. He's spoiled rotten, and Dr. Crabtree really, I would recommend him for any animal. It doesn't matter whether it's dog, horse, cow, pigs, chickens, whatever, because not only did he help Fred and give us back a member of our family, he was so kind, and that means a lot. And that's Fred's story.